Hello, Howard Schwartz. Thank you for being here today with the College Advisor YouTube channel. As you can see by your hat, you run a company called HOWTrek. I love the design on it. I'm excited to have you here today. I've known about your company for a while, and I think what you're doing is so important, not just for kids, but also adults. But my focus is always on mostly teenagers because the kids that I work with, as you know, are getting ready to start potentially thinking about college, applying to college, and all of that. And what I've noticed over the years is there are certain skill sets that a lot of them are missing. And I think you fill that gap and have an important message to send to people. And I'm excited to have you here to talk about it. Before I let you introduce yourself, I found out that you're a certified wilderness first responder. And recently that training came in handy. And I thought you could share some of that because it's not every day that we get to meet a hero.
Wow.
And it's easy to downplay that, but you are.
Hi, Hilary. I thank you for the opportunity to be with you and to talk. To respond to your point about wilderness first responder, I'm basically a medic with some limitations. Like I can't sew people together, I can't give prescriptions, but I'm doing everything else in terms of medicine. And so I was playing a softball game a couple weeks ago, city league softball game, and second inning, I'm at first base, and a gentleman ran into the middle of our baseball game screaming for help, and went up to the umpire and said somebody fell, they're down, they're at another field, can you help? And so the umpire just kind of turned and started walking, and I took off and I ran right to the situation. And as I was running by the umpire, I said, "Do you have any first aid knowledge? Do you have any know what you're doing here?" He goes, "No," and I just kept on running. And so what happened is I came upon a man slumped over in the dugout behind a bench. And as I approached him, started communicating, he was very unaudible or slurry. When I got
Sure.
closer, he had lacerations on his face
Oh no.
and dirt on his forehead, and immediately started just asking questions and starting to determine what I needed to do first. Ultimately, through some questions, stabilizing and making sure that he's breathing and whatnot,
Yeah.
checking his pulse, determined that he hadn't drank water in 6 hours. And it was 85 degrees. And then
Oh,
I was doing something called the body or a blood sweep. You're trying to make sure there's nothing else that's hurt on the individual
sure.
beyond what I see on the head. He had a diabetic tab on his back tricep. Are you diabetic? Yes. So those two determinations, there's a term called stop eats, where it's within my methodology to find out what's causing a situation.
Sure. Sure.
And it found out he was dehydrated and low blood sugar. So we started hydrating him, started increasing his cooling by putting a cold compress on his neck and giving him water, little sips of water, and an orange within 10 minutes. Let me go back for 1 second. The very first thing I did when I noticed that he was not really conscious and he was in a difficult situation, I screamed for somebody to contact 911
Yeah.
and to report back to me right away when they got in touch with 911. That's the first thing I needed to do.
Sure. Sure.
And then I provided medicine when they told me that they were on their way. And within 10 minutes, the paramedics hadn't gotten there. His consciousness was fully elevated. We started treating the wounds on him. He was hydrating himself and started joking and laughing. And it was really, at the end of it, it was just he leaned over. He had visivago, lightheadedness from the dehydration, and the blood sugar drop fell
Yeah.
on his face.
Wow.
And so, and then I just went back into my softball game, and I got to get up to bat and I got a good hit the next time, and I felt good. And it was really gratifying, Hilary, because I do this training so that I'm prepared. And
Right.
oftentimes when you do training like this, because I'm not a paramedic, I'm not dealing with this on a daily, regular basis. It's about doing things repetitively. I have this
Sure.
methodology. You got to do things 100 times to really learn them. just we could talk about that in
Yeah,
later
definitely,
time. But
definitely.
but I
But
had a chance to really do it live and really
wow.
implement medicine and take care of somebody, and I got a lot of satisfaction out of using
Yeah,
this.
I'm sure you did. And lucky for that guy that you were there, because I would imagine most people, when they yell, is there a doctor in the house kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, con not congratulations. That's not the right word, but that's a pretty amazing thing to do.
Thank
So,
you.
luckily, that training came in handy, and I would imagine when you're training for it, you maybe assume and or hope that you never have to use it, right? But it's a good skill set to have
Yeah.
amongst, as we continue our conversation, other skill sets that
Yeah.
are not life and death, but really important to have as you go on through life.
Yeah. And to that point, when we're going to get into the life skills that I try to emphasize, which we'll talk about,
Mhm.
it's there. My tagline is on and off the trail. Basic, simple first aid is something everyone should know. And
Right.
you should not be afraid to help somebody in need. There's good
Yeah.
Samaritan opportunities, and even for our own well-being, to we get hangry, and
Yeah.
that hangry is just because you're not feeding yourself, and you could seriously change your psychology if you just put a little food. So you don't have your favorite meal, you don't have you're not eating your favorite thing, but your body needs fuel. It's like a
Yeah.
car. And
Right.
if you don't put fuel in it, it's not going to run, and it's going to start screaming just like you do when you're hangry.
Right. Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for asking.
So, I always ask the people that I'm interviewing, one of the first things is how did you and what were you doing before you started HowTrek? And then how did you decide to start it? And tell us a little bit about the concept and the different pillars
Yeah,
that you offer to people.
great. So I have been an adventuring person, trekking, mountaineering, and living in the nature since I was a teenager. And I've always enjoyed it. And I would have friends want to get in touch with me and go on trips with me. And then as I got it later in life, I had what we had children, my wife and I, and our son, our oldest son, Elijah, had a chance to join something called Cub Scouts, right?
Mhm.
And so, being an active community person and caring about participating with things with my kids, I signed up to join Cub Scouts. And I raised my hand to be the leader because I have a lot of outdoor adventure skills
Okay.
that are a lot of what are taught within the construct of scouting. In addition, there are a lot of life skills that are taught within scouting. They call them merit badges. And I'm an entrepreneur. I've had businesses, communication, life skills programs. And so I became a merit badge counselor for a dozen different skill sets that were taught to scouts. And so I did that for 20 years, to the point
Wow.
where I became the trainer of the people who are training people
Wow.
on adventuring, and one of the leaders in the merit badge programs. And then my son earned his Eagle badge, fortunately, and I needed somewhere to put my hat. In addition, I learned that we're underserving the rest of the people that aren't doing scouting. And there's so many people that don't have parents that enroll them into scouting. They don't have the access to a scouting organization, and we're just not serving the broader community of young adults that need these critical life skills. And
Sure.
so HOWTrek was born a decade ago or so, as of at a need out of keeping me keeping me
Giving
adventurous.
you something to do.
Yeah, and I was volunteering all those 20 years, and so now I was
Right.
able to turn it into a business, which was which was suited my entrepreneurial passion. So I basically developed a life skills program myself, designed and developed it based on the core principles that I believe are the life skills that youths and adults, for the most part, but youths really need to learn, as well as an adventure company. And I tether them together so that you can learn your life skills on and off the trail.
Okay.
And when people say how trek, oh, you're Howard trekking, or how
Right.
to trek, it's really how to trek. My whole concept is to teach you how to do something, learn something, so with such competency that you should be able to teach another person. So with inside of every sort of program that I'm doing, I'm teaching with the idea that I'm enabling you to be a teacher too. To truly learn something, you have to be able to teach it. And so I focus on financial literacy, communication skills, home and auto related things.
Wow.
Things are practical skills for today's people. When you and I were growing up, Hilary, we were very fortunate, whether we realized it or not. We had home ec classes, and because our parents were not often there, we had to learn how to figure stuff out ourselves, and we
Right.
were really self-reliant. And as a benefit, we become very skilled people relatively.
Right.
And we've done a disservice in our educational model over the last several decades, where we've removed those skill programs,
Right.
those auto shop, the wood shop. We don't teach cursive and handwriting anymore in school, and they're lacking communication because they're using their phones and the AIs, and so the need for HOWTrek has become greater than ever because we have a void in our system of teaching our young adults how to be prepared. We teach them to test really well, but we don't teach them how to live really well.
Right. And I think that's such an important point. As a parent of three girls who are going out into the world and forging their own paths, but you get busy as a parent and not forget sometimes, but just sort of assume certain things. And one of them is like budgeting or taking care of money or how to put oil in your car if you have oil in your car anymore. I'm going to really date myself here, but just the practical things. And it's hard. And I think you throw into the fact that when you have teenagers, they don't often listen to one's parents because what do we know? Which is the benefit of having somebody, that's why people hire me, is because I get to guide the student in a certain way. Their parent could say the same thing to them. They'll roll their eyes,
Yeah.
but they won't do that with me. And I think, the benefit of having an outside person is I think kids are more receptive to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And to that point, you can't, kids have a tendency to choose to talk to their parents a certain way and to their teachers a certain way. And when they
yeah,
have an adult that they could feel comfortable to learn from, I'm not the parent,
right.
not the teacher.
Yeah. So, I work with high school students, and a lot of them are high achieving academically, but they struggle with independence. And I don't know about you, but because of our phones, it's like an umbilical cord to our children that's never been cut. And they can text you and say, I'm in the airport. How do I find the shuttle? In our day, we would have just walked up to somebody and asked them.
Yeah.
And kids don't have that communication, or a lot of them, not everything. But what are some of your concerns when you think about that or thinking about, this next generation coming up?
Yeah. I think you hit on a couple of things there, and I said it earlier. We're preparing our youth for their tests. We're teaching them we're teaching them basic rudimentary skills on how to take a test. We're
Right.
teaching them by the book, but there's so much about things in life that aren't about the book. They're street smarts. It's a
Yeah.
general term from when we were growing up. You're book smart or you're street smart. And so we're teaching our kids how to test and deal with that. We don't teach them how to deal with the anxiety of the test. Again, we're removing that emotional element, which is a really it's critical thinking,
Hmm.
which is lacking in their brains and their experience because we're teaching them not to critically think. We're just throwing tests at them because we're trying to rapid fire learn so they
Right.
can get grades because the schools are focused on funding and they're
Yes.
focused on getting the kids through the system so they can get funding. And the reality of it is more than half, and there's studies and data that shows this, more than half of the students, 50% plus of the students are creatives, entrepreneurial people, are outside of the STEM concept of our educational system. They're the They're the designers of things that are innovating. Not that the people that are STEM aren't designing and innovating, because
Sure,
they
sure.
obviously are. But if half of our demographic are creatives, and we're not even teaching creativity anymore, we're missing a huge chunk of our young adults teaching how to teach them.
Yeah,
Instead, you're saying, teach, here's the test, here's the test, this is how we measure your learning based on testing,
right.
instead of finding another way that an individual like Montessori, center-based learning really focuses on the individual. And our public schools are really not focused on the individuals, are focused
No,
on the uniformity in the masses. The private schools get into that, the charter schools can get into that, but a
right.
majority of our young population is in general school districts with, funding is based on passing kids. And
Right.
so we are at a critical issue right now because the kids don't they have testing skills, but they don't have life skills. And they have
No.
no concept when you send them off to college. I'll give you a great example, right? Our daughter Ruby went off to college she's a sophomore, and she's in her first apartment on her own, and we don't have a microwave in our home for a variety of reasons, but
Okay.
her apartment has a microwave, and she called me, Papa, how do I use a microwave?
Yeah.
Just really simple things that they just don't know. There's things there's things you don't know, and then there's things you don't know that you don't know.
Right,
And
right.
so it's something silly as that, but that's a great example of how basic, simple knowledge can make all the difference, because she sends me photos every other day about the food she's making, not just in the microwave, because
Okay,
I taught her how to use
good.
her oven and her stove and pots and pans, and I
Right,
teach her how to clean, I teach her how to measure. I'm
right,
trying to make her prepared for her future
right.
independence.
Right. And I think that's important for all kids. You're right
Correct.
about the learning. It's a lot of regurgitation and as I'm reading more and more information about kids going off to college and grade inflation, you could have a straight A student and they get to college, they've never read an entire book. They just we're gonna go off on tangents, which I'm trying not to do, but there's so many things that I think is important to take a step back and go back a little bit to how we were raised in a way, and that we were forced to communicate with people, right? Like the example of being at an airport, you don't know how to get there unless you had a quarter or a dime or whatever it is to put it in a payphone to call someone. You had to figure things out. And so, I think we're raising accomplished teens, but not necessarily capable adults.
What's interesting is sometimes we are called helicopter parents, right?
Yeah,
And that's because we're over hovering over them. And in some ways we are responsible for some of this, because the beauty of it is that our kids call and ask us. And there's a beautiful, graceful thing out of knowing that our kids are calling us to ask for help. I,
sure.
I'd rather that, but I never asked my parents for help much. I didn't. I was had to just figure it out. My parents were busy. They were whatever. They fed me,
Yeah.
they clothed me, they provided for me. But
Or
the
they didn't
concept,
always answer the phone.
right, right, they were in the voicemail. She would get back to me, right. So
Yeah,
there was no accessibility where instantly my kid could text me and call me and would expect me to respond in a moment
sure.
because they've done that. So so we're in this place where we just evolved, and we now really provide a wonderful learning for our kids when they ask us, and we're very generous with how to help them, which is wonderful. But they're still not learning the communication skills because they're not getting uncomfortable, they're not getting outside of the box, and we
Yeah,
tend to overprotect our kids instead of create conflict with our kids and create constructs that are make enabling them to figure it out.
right, right. So when you started HowTrek, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the different pillars of communication, personal management, home, and auto. How did you decide on those three?
So a couple of reasons. Um, the most important reason is when I think about how a young adult has got to enter the world that we live in today, what are the most important things that they need to learn, right? It's how to feed yourself, how to make sure you know where to put your gas. I mean, I can't tell you how many kids have no idea when they first drive how to put gas, or even nowadays plug their cars in,
Yeah.
to the simple things that, you could spend $150 having somebody change your oil for you, or you could spend $35, learn it once,
Yeah.
and do it for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so for me, it came down to the prioritizing. It was, again, my methodology comes from a bit of scouting, because
Okay.
in scouting we have these badges that are what's called Eagle Merit badges. They're the
Sure.
most critical ones that everyone needs to earn, and then there's like all these other ones that are secondary, tertiary, but the primary ones kept getting back to. And I've mentored hundreds of young adults, and they're most apparently needing areas of support in financial literacy, in their communication skills, and how to deal with stuff around their home and around their day-to-day life, like the automobile and food and cooking and everything inside their home. And so
Right.
they became the most important ones, because I think they're the most critical things for success, off book success, to get them ready for real world.
Right. So, what do you see? I have kind of two questions at once. Is what communication mistakes do you see teens making the most often?
Yeah.
And if you had to suggest something before students go off to college, because they're
Mm.
not going to have their parents with them day in and day out, is what communication mistakes do you see, and I don't know if it's fair to ask you to pick one, but a couple of points of what are the most important communication skills that you think kids should have as they go off into their own, their next step in their lives.
Communication is, in my mind, the number one pillar, before any of the other ones.
Right.
Because if you have the ability to communicate, you need help, which, other than us, our kids do not ask for help from other people,
No,
certainly not from their peers. They don't
no.
ask their teachers for help. And so, critical thinking, how to understand how to deal with conflict, between two people. You might have a disagreement, and they don't have the skill set to understand how to resolve the agreement, to even agree to disagree.
No.
And so when I
They
think of the
do.
most important element, it's communication. And I think their tendency is to use their phone as their form of communication, and their email. A couple of things are really critical here. There is a very distinct difference between texting and email, the formatting and the structure of how you communicate. You do not write an email that has LOL. It's
No.
just wrong practice. There are certain etiquettes that are diluted because they're just on their phones all the time. And most of them aren't, they don't even actually know how to write, most of them, an email. Their form of communication for young adults is text.
Right.
And so, how to properly format. It sounds funny, but
No,
one of
it's
the things that I thought was great about learning cursive, which is gone entirely, not even remotely taught, no handwriting, let alone cursive. Cursive utilized both sides of your brain simultaneously. It allowed creativity to
right.
take place so that you can figure out how to make the beauty of it. And then also the formula of connecting them. And it utilized as creative and organized part of our brain simultaneously. And so we're no longer teaching that dual use of our brain. We're just removing it down to, I'm just going to use my phone. I'm going to talk to it,
I know.
right? And so, I think that they need to understand how to deal with conflict resolution is one of the critical things, especially as they're going off to college.
Yeah.
They're going to have such a diverse group of youths from all different areas, ethnic, financial, social backgrounds, and
Right.
and they don't have any clue, because they've been sheltered within their community that they've lived in, and how to deal with it that way. When you put them into a dormitory with 500 other kids, plus in a building, the personalities are off the chart.
Right.
And so they have no concept of how to deal with that. And so I really emphasize how important it is to deal with conflict resolution. I think that's one of the most important parts of communication. And then having the ability to have an oral communication is secondary. You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to open your mouth and have a conversation,
Yeah.
ask for help, tell people your opinion, not what your social media tells you your opinion
Yeah.
should be,
Yeah.
but your founded, genuine opinion on things and be able to articulate that.
Right.
Those two areas, then you get into how to write an email, how to properly write a letter,
I
uh,
know.
and texting is really just instant. It's called instant message. It's not supposed to be something long and a full monologue worth of vomiting into a phone. Message should be like, I need to talk to you instead of
Right.
expressing feelings in the text. We've
Right.
lost the etiquette of it.
Which can be miscommunicated and
Oh,
also
always,
misinterpreted, and
always.
then it creates, and then you have this conflict. It's happening on college campuses where I think it's called no contact order or something like that. I'm drawing a blank on the specific name, but you can get into an argument with your roommate in your dorm and then create something instead of saying, hey, it bugs me, you always
Yeah,
don't take out the trash. What they can do is just go to the school administration and basically say, this kid cannot contact me in any way,
yeah,
instead of learning how to negotiate.
right.
Even, it's just, and I think because of our phones, you can say something really nasty to somebody and not see the reaction of that other person when they get it. So it voids out any emotional connection. And
Correct.
the sender of the message doesn't realize how hurtful that might have been. And was that even their intent?
Right, correct. And so much more can be accomplished when you pick up the phone or you talk to the person instead of allow
Right.
the conversation. Conversations are not meant to be used in a text format.
No,
It's just not. It's
no.
meant to be instant message. Here's my message. Yes, no, here, meet here.
Yeah.
Simplify things. When you need to resolve something, you want to communicate something, you pick up your phone and you dial. We don't dial anymore.
Right, right, right.
Hey Siri, call, whatever,
Right, right.
but we need to start to feel comfortable having oral communication
Mhm,
again, and
mhm.
not feel so constricted that we don't know we actually literally don't know how to do it. And I see it on a regular basis with the kids that I work with on a regular basis, the lack of confidence they have,
Right.
being able to communicate to themselves anything that's of any pertinent value, or just to say, hey, what are you up to? Instead, they'll sit next to each other side by side and they will talk via their phone.
I know. I've seen that. And I think about, developmentally, I think when kids are kind of toddlers, they go through a certain period. It's called parallel play, where the
Yeah,
kids are playing, but they're each doing their own thing. And that's what it reminds me of with the
yeah,
kids. They're
right,
like
right.
not,
Yeah, you got to put them into a sandbox with all the toys in there and figure out what you want to play with and who you want to play with and how you want to
yeah,
play.
yeah,
Don't even we've unfortunately we've as a generally saying we've individualized we've so micro individualized ourselves through
right.
all the classifications of how we determine each other to be, instead of just being human beings talking and communicating with each other regardless of what your background, social, physical, economic, religion, whatever that is.
Right.
They're secondary or tertiary to where just human beings need to talk. We have a conflict, resolve. We like each
Yeah.
other, let's talk about it.
Right. Or you need help. And when I work with students and my own children, I talk about that asking for help is a sign of, it's a strength. It's not a sign of weakness, because nobody goes through life knowing everything. And it's important to reach out. But more specifically, it's important to be able to communicate what it is you need help with. So it's not just, I don't understand, like dialing it when you said this and being way more specific about it. So the
Yeah,
person you're talking to understands
yeah.
how they can help you.
Yeah, when I talk to my kids and I talk to other kids that are in college, I
Mhm.
always get back to the idea that college is a learning. It's like
Yeah.
a learning camp, and it's teaching you under certain circumstances an environment on
Right.
how to learn to learn.
Yes.
Right? That's it. It's not, yes, you want your degree, you want to make your friends, you want to have fun,
Yeah.
but the goal is to learn how to learn. So when you go into the real world, you learn how to learn your job, you learn how to learn to communicate, you learn how to learn to do these things.
Right.
It's so important to just say, you know what, I don't know this, I need help, so I can learn it.
Yeah.
And so the university and college environment is missing again its opportunity to emphasize how important it is that this is a learning institute. They're so institutionalized. I find the universities these days and colleges, they're institutions financially, they're cash cows, they're
Yeah.
just unbelievable behemoth making money machines, that they've lost their moral compass, in my general opinion, from making sure that they're educating their young adults on how to learn and find the access to it. It blows me away with the kids that I talk to. When was the last time you talked to your college counselor? What do you have, a college counselor?
Yeah.
But are you talking with them on a quarterly basis? I haven't even met them. I'm a sophomore.
Right.
Are you on track? Are you
Right.
learning? Did you ask for your scholarship help? Did you ask for what organizations you should be part of? And again, it's just that we're missing the individual youths, and we're just teaching the mass concept. And it's why HOWTrek is so important passionately for me,
Right.
uh, to to make sure that we have a future of people that can provide and care for themselves.
No, I agree. I think it's important too. And it goes back to what and I don't want to belabor this. We'll move on in a second, but with our education system, it's also um, you want to get good grades so that you get into a good college, whatever that is supposed to mean. And so the focus is so much on just getting through things.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times when kids don't understand, and let's say you get a D on a paper,
Yeah.
one of the best things that I heard was Carol Dweck, who is a psychologist, and she, instead of giving kids a D or an F, which is demoralizing and makes you feel stupid and all of that, instead of just giving them that awful grade, is giving them a not yet,
Yeah.
meaning somebody's going to help you figure out what you missed.
Mm.
Our school
Hopefully.
system just, you can graduate with D's,
Correct.
you can
Correct.
get out of high school with D's. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, going back to your pillars, I think, we talked about personal management and what are some of the things that you think about the importance of personal management and what falls under that.
I think it encompasses a lot of things. Financial literacy is the core principal part of it. It's um, it's it's removing the fear or the unknown about understanding what interest is, what taxes mean, how
Yeah.
to fill out paperwork when you're asking for a credit card. Was interesting debit and credit,
Yeah.
and savings and retirement, and really kind of ripping the band-aid off on all these words that they have no concept of,
Right.
that we are literally again preparing them for the future, and they have no idea how to deal with any of these things. And the only benefactor of it is the people that are selling the services to them. Here's a credit card, sign up for your credit card, and now
Yeah.
you're in debt for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's not a lesson. There's no
No.
learn in that. And so financial literacy is the second most important element in my mind, to providing your success, a path for success in your life. Having an understanding of what all that basic stuff, basic, I'm not talking, we could get into stocks and bonds and mutual funds and
Right.
ETFs and Bitcoin and all, those are secondary parts at best, but having an understanding of simple, basic, got to file taxes every year. Oh,
Yeah.
they're taking money out of my paycheck. What do you mean they're taking money out? Really simplify it so they just understand the basics,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And so for me, I just want to give them the basics and the ones, and then and start adding layers to it. It depends on the length and the program that we're working on, how
Sure.
broad I'll get to, because I've had financial advisors come in and they'll talk to the kids that have gotten through the basic layer of stuff, and now you really want to talk and ask questions. What
Yeah.
is a stock? What's a stock and a bond and a treasury, And so what, as much as I know, it's wonderful when I bring in other people because it's just like that show and tell day when you get to say, here's a financial advisor from Bank of America,
Right, right.
and the kids listen and they enjoy that. And it gives the strength and confidence to that person that I brought in too, which is indirectly benefiting them because they know we're helping
Absolutely.
others.
So for parents, not everybody gets to come to your classes because this is going to be, a YouTube channel that everybody can see pretty much from the world, but let's just say in our country. What can parents do to help with some of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are online tools. There are YouTube channels. There are podcasts. There are people like you and I that have created content. You
Right.
can search for. I think the most important thing is to use your own knowledge and have comfort in talking to your kids about, do you have questions about this stuff? Do you know what it means? Like right now, we're preparing for tax season. So I'm getting all my W-2s and my
Right.
W-9s and whatever that documents. My kids who make money are bringing this stuff to me and saying, what do I do with this? And so this is a great opportunity to start to teach that three-letter tax, the three-letter
Yeah.
word, tax. Um, and to utilize the opportunity when you go out for dinner, show them, explain to them, this is what the bill is. So, like one of the things that I do when I go food shopping with my kids is, it's amazing. Sometimes, not sometimes, many times the food stores are designed to their marketing tools, right?
Yeah.
And they try to tell you 2 for 1 is better. But if you look at, there's actually a required by law. When you look at the price, when you look at the tag, it says price per unit.
Yeah.
You look at the one and you compare the two, the smaller one is less expensive than the larger one, price per unit. And so teaching kids how to be frugal, not cheap, just frugal, and
Right.
give them little tools and little wisdoms on how to pay attention to make sure you're not overpaying for stuff
Yeah.
and understanding where money comes in. Setting up an allowance for a kid is a great tool. Instead of just giving them money, say, here's your $100 a month, and if you spend it on dinner tonight with your
Yeah.
friends, what are you going to do for the rest of the month or the rest of the week or whatever? Giving them those learning tools and be proactive with it.
Right.
Engage your kids with conversations, stimulating conversations. I try to emphasize, we live in a very, very loud world,
Hmm.
very amped up. It's super amped. And so I find it's interesting to have critical conversations with your kids about politics and the society around the world that we're in. Be cautious with those things because they're still formulating their opinions. You have your opinion, and it might not be their opinion. And you have to
Right.
respect that they might agree to disagree with you, but they haven't learned that yet. So I try to say, be careful about pop culture, pop news, the immediate stuff, and have conversations about a general topic and start to engage your kids.
Right, right. Engaging with your kids is so important, and sometimes it's really hard, but I think I just talk about just listen, and inside you might want to react and go, how could you do that? Or what did before my kids went off to college, I said, do not sign up for a credit card because they're always trying to sell kids credit cards.
Amazing.
We have to talk about it. What does that mean? It looks, you got this piece of plastic. Wow, I can go buy those pair of shoes that I wanted and this, and I'm going to take my friends out to dinner. And then you have to pay it. And if you don't pay it, all the interest. But, you know, it's just constant, constant.
Yeah.
It's always trying, I think, as adults, I try to remind myself a lot to look at things from their vantage point the
Mhm.
best that I can, not thinking, oh my God, how could you do that? Because as soon as you do that, you've cut off the communication, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. We talked about it earlier. It becomes a slippery slope being the parent and the teacher because your
Mhm.
kids are selectively listening. And so
Yeah,
being the parent and the teacher simultaneously can be difficult.
it
Uh,
is difficult, but I also feel like you plant seeds. They don't
Correct.
look like half the time, they don't look like they're listening,
Yeah.
but I think they are somewhere in there. They're not going to admit it,
Mhm.
usually, but you just don't know where those lessons take root and help
Correct.
them later on.
Right, correct.
So,
And you want to, I think it's important to expose them to having their own bank account. Give them little tools. If you have a credit card, we're going to have the statement sent to you, and give them small learning tools,
sure.
small, manageable. They can't, not an Amex card that's got unlimited money on it or anything.
No.
Create opportunities where you can teach them. When
Yes.
I'm doing with the taxes for my kids and I'm helping them out, I'm using it as a teachable moment.
Yeah.
It's nice because it's empowered my kids to ask me questions.
Right, right.
So
Because you said at one point in our conversation, you don't know what you don't know. So, how do you ask questions about a credit card when you have no idea, like, what is interest? What does that even mean? You just go, woohoo, this is fun.
right, correct, right. And there's positive interest and negative interest, which most people don't even, there's simple things that you got to just positive interest. Put some money in a bank account and it makes interest. And then
Right,
there's having a credit card, and that's interest. The same word has two completely different meanings.
right. Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. So, really, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of parents, is having these little mini conversations with kids and taking advantage of, let's say you did give your kid $100 a week for allowance or whatever, $50, $25, and they spend it all, use that as a teaching moment, not I told you, but how are you going to deal with things differently next time?
Yeah.
I
You, you
am,
know, there's a great that you should follow up with a question with a question, right? So I suggest to parents to ask their kids, what would they do in this situation? How do you think it is? Explain what you observe it to be, and empower them to do the thinking instead of me just telling them.
yeah,
Because we have to start to teach them how to learn,
right.
right? And if they're not figuring it out and you just keep giving them the answers, they're not learning it. So by
No,
just re-engaging back, so what do you think interest is? What do
yeah,
you think? What
yeah.
do you think a credit card is? You know the answer. You can tell it to them, but the better way is for them to learn it by communicating, teaching it back to you.
Right. I would imagine, we started out talking about you were trained to certified wilderness, learning how to save people. You had to practice that, right? You didn't
Oh,
just sit in a classroom and go, okay, I know how to do CPR. Like you had to practice it, practice
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I have this methodology, and it's general, but it's this: how you have to do something 100 times, and you have to just know that it's going to take 100 times to
Right.
go through the successes, the failures, the opportunities, the issues, the obstacles, the wrongdoing, the right way to do it. It's the rep. It's where you have to develop the knowledge through the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, somebody does something wrong and then they avoid it. But the wrong is you trying. It's better to try, and there's that saying, better to try and fail than to
Yes.
fail never trying. And
Right.
so all the scenarios always say, try, try,
Yeah.
try, keep learning and growing. So if you use in your mindset, I got to do this 100 times, generally thinking,
Yeah.
it helps you to know that you're going to have a bunch of different scenarios that occur during that 100 times that you're doing it.
Right. But the problem, I think, with our phones and our access to information so quickly and influencers and whatever is the kids are seeing people already at a certain place. They see their parents as maybe have worked hard but they see them as, an entrepreneur, successful where they are, but they don't see all the times we messed up and fell
Correct.
and
Correct.
whatever it is, and that's just part of life. Like
Yeah,
failing
right.
is, you learn more from failing than you do from being successful, I think.
You do, and that's another great saying. And understanding that, anybody that you're watching on social media is editing and
Yes.
adding filters and screens, and they
Yeah.
didn't tell you how many times they screwed up before they got the right recording.
Right.
You're seeing, lipstick on the pig,
Right.
and it's just not right. And
Right.
unfortunately, our young adults are influenced. That's where that term influencer comes from. They're influenced
Right.
by others that are not really peers.
No.
They are, it's like, oh, I wish I could be a Leonardo DiCaprio. 99.9999% of people that want to be a Leonardo DiCaprio will never be a Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
So, be realistic about what you can do and how you can achieve what you want and make your own self awesome and amazing. And so that's it. You don't have to be like somebody else, just be you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's hard. It takes a little practice,
Yeah.
self-confidence and all of that. But, you started also talking about loving the outdoors and how does that help?
Yeah, yeah.
How does
It's
that help?
it's such a it's one of the things that I think we've lost in all of our general life skills is our connection with nature. Up until 125, 130, 50 years ago, you had to grow your own food. If you didn't grow it, you went into the market and you'd barter for some stuff. And you had to live to learn. You learned how to live by your own effort. And nowadays, I know kids that'll order a French fries to be delivered to the house from DoorDash, and
Yeah.
there's no appreciation for anything that took place to get those fries to you. And so, getting outdoors is there's terms like grounding. There is literally science that says when you're outdoors in nature, the nature literally has a give and take effect on your
Sure.
physical body. It allows you to slow down and relax and declutter your brain when you start to realize you're surrounded by all these things that are been around for most of them have been around for longer than we've been around
Yeah.
for. And the uniqueness and the beauty of looking at a butterfly or hearing the sounds of the wind blowing through the trees. I find nature to be one of the most healing places, one of the most important places to spend time de-stressing or appreciating and having gratitude. And just you don't have to go on a trek, I'd love
Yeah.
you on a wild, cool adventure with me, but I also take people on just day hikes, and I also take people with disabilities and whether it's autism or physical disabilities. Nature is available to everybody.
Right.
Just find your nature. Go to a pond and just sit by the pond and receive the nature that's around you. You don't have to go far. It's just outside your front door,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes I've even heard, and I remember the first time someone said this to me, when was the last time you were barefoot and feeling grass?
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
I was like, oh my
right,
God, because we're
right.
on cement a lot. And so it's
Yeah,
even if you just go to your backyard,
correct.
lie down on the grass, look up at the sky, look at the patterns of the clouds,
Yeah,
feel the whatever it is.
yeah.
But
There's so much data, science behind the benefit of being in nature that it's extraordinary they're not actually teaching more about getting outdoors
I
because
know,
it's a
I
life
know,
skill and
I
it's an
know.
imperative as communication, as imperative financial literacy, home and auto is nature.
Yeah,
It's understanding and appreciate. What you learn in nature is you learn that nature takes time.
yeah,
It takes time to nurture nature. And
yes,
you plant a seed and then you have to take care of that seed or the seed doesn't grow, just like for you. And you can
right.
find some wonderful, beautiful analogies on how to deal with and understand and interpret life by understanding and interpreting and relating to how nature has survived and thrives.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think too, this, there's always been a lot of talk recently about kids and mental health and the anxiety and depression and all of that. And a lot of times, I know with my own kids, they'll call and they'll be upset about something. I'm like, go take a walk.
Yeah.
Just go take a walk. And I think it's hard to do when you're in such a state, but get out of your head for a minute and try to find some clarity, right? It's just,
It's when we were growing up, Mom, I'm bored. Get out of the house and
right.
don't come back until you're home until dinner time. And that boredom, it's funny because I think it's got a derogatory bored. I'm
Yeah.
bored. We learn how to do things through our boredom. We are none of us, including myself, sit in a doctor's office or do whatever I can, and I just stimulate myself by grabbing my phone.
Mhm.
Instead of being bored and allowing myself to explore my inner emotions, my ideas, and my thoughts, we don't
Right.
even allow ourselves to have that. And so
No.
it's a healthy thing to be bored because through your boredom, you discover your interests. And get outdoors is doesn't mean go for a hike. It just means go for a walk, go
Yeah.
sit and pay attention to the nature, slow your brain down, receive some of the vitamin D coming from the sun,
Right.
and allow it to just do its work. Adults need it just as much as the kids do
Yeah.
because we're not dealing with stress at all across the board.
Yeah.
And we're amped up like no degree because of all the dopamine that we're literally ingesting into our bodies. And
Yeah.
we need to unplug, disconnect to reconnect to what's important.
Right. Go back to the olden days as,
A
you
little
know,
bit, yeah, a little bit.
yeah, it's, technology has been amazing in some respects and certainly a detriment in other ways, but I think it's created this disconnect between human connection.
It has.
So,
It has.
Howard, do you have any, before we kind of
Sure.
wind up our conversation, advice, things that we're not going to stop the conversation and you're going to say, I wish I had said that, or just parting words to
Um,
parents, to teens, to anybody who's watching this, listening to us?
get outdoors. It's good for you, right? Really important to remember that. In any way you can physically, emotionally, spiritually get yourself disconnected and get
Right,
outdoors, right? And don't be afraid of the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And so everything that we talked about today does not happen overnight,
oh,
right? It takes an effort and takes a community, village, whatever you want to call that. It takes everybody's effort and it takes time to grow and to learn. Just like in nature, it plants a seed and it takes time. The knowledge that you want to have with life skills takes time, and just take the time to start.
right.
Take the first step on learning and asking and understanding financial literacy, work on your communication skills, get outdoors, and you'll just be a better human being for it and you'll create a better path for your future.
And be curious, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Be
It's
curious.
wonderful things. I believe you should have 20 jobs in your 20s, unless you are supposed, maybe, unless you know you want to be an accountant, or you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, everyone should be in the service industry at least once in their lifetime because it teaches you how to not do things and how people are who they are and the
Right.
challenges of working behind the scenes and just explore. There's no pressure. Your 20s are supposed to be about exploring your interests and
Yeah.
going through it. And not be afraid that you need to have a career set when you're in your 20s at all.
Or in your
30, yeah.
backing up to the kids that I work with who are applying to college. One time I had a girl crying. She goes, everybody knows what they want to major in, but I don't know. And I said, you don't have to know.
Yeah.
You don't have to know. Most kids, like going to college is an opportunity. What you said is learn. You might find, be curious, learn about something you had no idea what it is. You don't know what's going to spark it. So,
Most adults that a young adult would meet are not in the career that they started with their degree in.
which is why I asked the question at the beginning, because none of us, you didn't start out in life going, I'm going to start HOWTrek
Right,
necessarily. It was
right,
an evolution. I didn't become a college advisor. That didn't
right,
exist that I know of when I was. So it's
right.
being open to opportunity and talking to people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So
not put the pressure on yourself that you need to be like the Joneses or the influencers or anything else that you compare yourself to. You are a beautiful, wonderful creature that was created out of just giving you the chance to live your life
yeah.
and just enjoy it and be graceful with it and be willing to try and fail and ask questions and get outdoors. It's good for
Yes. Yes.
you.
Howard, that's a perfect way to end the conversation. Thank you so much for talking with me today. And I look forward to talking to you again and maybe going on a trek one day because I don't know how to start a fire. So maybe you can teach me that.
I'll teach you how to start a fire without a match.
That's what I mean.
Cool.
Oh.
Yeah. 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 I love it. Thank you so much. I finished with gratitude. I appreciate the opportunity. And anybody that's listening, I think you should lead from gratitude because gratitude is a genuine emotion. And if you come from that place, you'll always be receiving the right messages coming back to you. So
Thank you so much.